The hangar was bigger than anything Jackson Miles had ever seen. Its walls stretched up into darkness, steel beams disappearing into shadows. Dust lay thick across the floor, coating the rails and crates like a gray blanket. He stepped carefully, boots echoing, and a shiver ran down his spine. There was something alive here, something waiting. He could feel it. At the center of the hangar loomed a battlecruiser. Its hull was black, scarred, and massive like a sleeping giant. Rust streaked its sides, and many panels hung loose, showing glimpses of wiring and mechanical guts. Jackson stopped at the edge of the ship, breathing shallow. He had repaired many starships before, but none of them had been like this. None carried the weight of centuries. The sheer size, the mystery, the silence, it pressed on him. A note lay half buried in dust on a nearby console. He picked it up, hands trembling slightly. The paper was yellowed, fragile, almost like it could crumble between his fingers. The writing was neat but strange, a mix of symbols he almost recognized and words in old Galactic standard. One line stood out, "Only a human can awaken her." Jackson frowned. He had heard the myths, the old stories about humans being underestimated, dismissed by other species. The galaxy did not expect humans to handle advanced technology like this. Yet here he was, standing in front of a ship that had waited centuries, and the note suggested that he, and only he, could make it live again. The thought made his heart race. Fear came too sharp and real. What if the ship was booby-trapped? What if activating it could kill him instantly? Still, the curiosity, the spark of challenge, burned brighter. Humans thrived on challenges. They thrived where others backed down. Courage wasn't a choice, it was survival. Jackson had always lived by that. He moved closer, running his hands over the cold metal of the hull. The texture was rough in some places, smooth in others, but there was a pulse beneath it, faint and almost imperceptible. He touched a panel and felt a tiny vibration, a whisper of power still inside. His eyes widened. The ship was not dead. Something inside it was waiting, responding to him. "Okay," he muttered to himself. "Let's see what you've got." Jackson knelt in front of a control console. Dust clouds swirled around him as he cleared panels and inspected wiring. Every part he touched seemed to resist or react unpredictably, as if the ship tested him. The screens flickered faintly, then died. He tried a few more panels, tapping and twisting, improvising tools from the gear in his bag. The ship was old, alien, and every system felt alive. It did not simply respond to commands, it demanded understanding. Hours passed in what felt like minutes. Jackson's mind raced, calculating, testing, learning. Each minor success brought a small thrill, flickering lights, a hum, a vibration through the floor. He had to think like the ship, anticipate it, predict how it wanted to move. No manual, no instructions, just human instinct and intelligence. Outside, the hangar's outer doors groaned under the weight of centuries. Wind howled across the moon's surface, rattling metal and carrying the taste of frozen dust. If the doors failed or if something outside broke through, there would be no backup. Jackson worked faster, aware of the fragility of his position. One mistake could tear through the hull or fry the circuits, or worse, bring the entire ship down on him. He paused to catch his breath, wiping sweat from his brow. He looked up at the shadowed command bridge high above, its windows like dark eyes watching him. There was history here, stories of battles fought and lives lost, of victories and defeats. And he, a single human, was about to step into that story. A sudden spark shot from a console. Jackson jumped back, heart racing. The vibration beneath his feet grew stronger, almost like the ship exhaled. He stared, frozen, as faint lights traced the hull in patterns he had never seen before. The energy wasn't dangerous, yet, but it was alive. Responsive. Waiting. Then from deep within the ship, a sound came, a low humming voice. It was not words he recognized, but a tone that resonated inside his chest. It was asking something, demanding something. The note's words came back to him, "Only a human can awaken her." He realized then that the ship wasn't just waiting for power, it was waiting for him. For his mind, his courage, his creativity. Jackson's stomach tightened. He knew that what came next could change everything. Not just for him but for the galaxy. Every instinct screamed caution. Yet every fiber of his being urged him forward. He took a deep breath, clenched his fists, and reached for the main activation panel. Sparks danced across the metal as his fingers touched the surface. The hum grew louder, almost like a heartbeat. The ship had recognized him. And now the real challenge was about to begin. Jackson swallowed hard, feeling the weight of centuries pressing on him, and whispered, "Let's wake you up." The ship's hum grew louder, vibrating through Jackson's bones. Panels flickered as he ran his fingers across the alien controls, trying to make sense of circuits and interfaces that had not been touched for centuries. Every touch seemed to ask a question, and every response demanded an answer only a human could give. He wiped sweat from his brow, realizing the task ahead was far beyond any repair job he had done. "Think, Jackson. You've handled worse," he muttered to himself. His voice echoed in the empty hangar, swallowed by steel and darkness. He needed a plan, and fast. The battlecruiser wasn't just old, it was alive in its own way. It reacted almost instinctively to his movements, and he had no idea what would happen if he made the wrong choice. He crouched in front of a main console and scanned the alien text. The symbols shifted under his gaze, almost like they were watching him back. Some looked familiar, remnants of a language long forgotten. He remembered the training data from the academy, patterns in alien systems, code behavior, and interface quirks. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Jackson started tapping sequences into the panels, combining instinct with the little knowledge he had. Sparks flew, and one of the smaller screens blinked alive, showing star maps from long before the Galactic Coalition's records began. He froze. These weren't just battle coordinates. They were warnings, patrol routes, and the remnants of civilizations erased by time. The ship carried memories, lives, decisions made in war. A tremor ran through the hangar floor. He looked up. The outer doors had shifted slightly. Wind from the moon's surface howled through cracks, carrying fine dust that stung his eyes. The storm outside could collapse the hangar if he wasn't careful. And someone, or something, might be watching. Old marauders or scavengers had been known to patrol abandoned moons. Every second mattered. He had to work faster. He rerouted auxiliary power to the main activation circuits, a risky move. The ship protested, a low grinding sound echoing through the hull, and sparks shot from the consoles. Jackson's heart hammered. One wrong calculation and the systems could fry, or worse, the ship could start a chain reaction that would leave him trapped under tons of metal. "Stay calm. Think like her," he whispered. Humans weren't the fastest or the strongest in the galaxy, but they had something machines lacked. Intuition, creativity, courage. And that was exactly what the ship needed. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. Jackson improvised circuits, rewired conduits, and aligned energy nodes that no manual had ever documented. The hum changed pitch, rising and falling like a living pulse. It was responding to him. He could feel it in his hands, in the soles of his boots, in his chest. The ship was alive, but it had been asleep too long, and it tested him at every turn. Then, without warning, a panel near the bridge flared violently. Jackson leapt back, narrowly avoiding a burst of energy that scorched the floor. His heart raced. The ship was not hostile, not yet, but it demanded respect, focus, and skill. He realized then that every ancient mechanism, every alien interface wasn't just protection. It was a challenge designed to see if the user was worthy. "You want a human, huh?" he said under his breath, brushing ash from his gloves. "Well, you got one." With steady hands he aligned the final nodes. Lights flared across the hull in intricate patterns. A vibration ran from the engines through the floor and into his bones. The ship exhaled. Jackson could feel it, faintly, like the heartbeat of a giant waking. His pulse synced with it. Every instinct, every choice he had made led to this moment. But the challenge wasn't over. Suddenly, the main console displayed a message in glowing symbols he barely understood. Integrity test failed. Human judgment required. His stomach dropped. The ship had paused, testing him, questioning him. One mistake now, one hesitation, and it could go dormant again, or worse, lock him out entirely. Jackson took a deep breath. He knew hesitation would cost him. He studied the display, tracing patterns and sequences. Logic alone wouldn't work. He had to improvise, combine memory with intuition, act with courage under pressure. He pushed his fear aside. Humans were not perfect, but they were unstoppable when they refused to give up. A sudden alert flashed on the overhead sensors. Something was approaching, fast. Small ships? Scouts? The storm outside was masking their approach, but the hum of engines reached him even through the thick hangar doors. He gritted his teeth. There was no time to hide. He had to finish awakening the battlecruiser, or face attackers with no backup, no weapons ready, and no chance of survival. Jackson's fingers flew across the controls. Sparks danced, the hum grew into a roar, and the energy nodes shone like molten gold. The ship trembled under him, alive, aware, responsive. He could feel it acknowledging him, not as a mechanic, not as a human in the galaxy, but as the one it had waited for. Then a deep vibration shook the hangar, louder than anything he had felt before. The lights along the hull flared, the engines thrummed, and a shockwave of power pulsed through the floor. Jackson stumbled, gripping a console to steady himself. He looked up at the bridge. The ship's main viewport lit up, and for the first time it seemed to see him. He knew in that instant that nothing would ever be the same. The battlecruiser had awakened partially, but the real challenge was just beginning. And outside, the storm wasn't the only danger. Something, or someone, was coming. Jackson leaned over the console, heart pounding. The hum of the ship had settled into a steady vibration, like a heartbeat finally waking after centuries of sleep. His hands shook slightly as he traced glowing symbols that seemed to respond to his touch. The battlecruiser was alive, but not fully awake. It wanted something from him, and he wasn't entirely sure what. He started exploring deeper into the ship. The corridors were massive, each one lined with alien metal that seemed almost organic in design. Faint lights pulsed along the walls, responding to his presence. The air smelled metallic and stale, carrying the weight of long-forgotten battles. He realized that this was not just a weapon, it was a vault, a library of experiences, decisions, and intelligence from a species long gone. In a side chamber he discovered pods, cylindrical and transparent, glimmering faintly. Inside each, a form floated, preserved in some kind of stasis. Alien faces, features delicate and strange, stared blankly as though waiting for something, or someone. Jackson swallowed hard. These weren't corpses. They were consciousnesses, alive in a way that defied his understanding. The console beside the pods flickered. Symbols rearranged themselves, forming a message he could barely decipher. Human required. Your mind is the key. Jackson's stomach tightened. It wasn't just about powering up the ship anymore. This was bigger, much bigger. He was not merely repairing machinery. He was bridging two species, two ways of thinking. His ingenuity, his courage, his ability to improvise under impossible conditions. It all mattered now. A sudden noise outside made him freeze. The hangar doors rattled violently. Something large slammed against them. He dashed back toward the nearest viewport, heart hammering. Through the reinforced glass, he saw dark shapes moving, ships, small but fast, weaving between the jagged rocks of the moon's surface. Marauders. Scavengers. They had detected the power surge and were coming to claim the ship for themselves. Jackson's mind raced. The battlecruiser's weapons were still offline. He had no backup. If these marauders broke in, the ship would fall and he would likely die. He had to act. He pulled up a control panel and began rerouting energy to defensive systems, improvising circuits that had not been used for centuries. Sparks flew as he rewired conduits, linking power to the hull's old shielding generators. The ship protested, shaking slightly, but obeyed him, just enough. The first shot hit. The hangar shuddered as a projectile slammed into the outer wall. Dust and metal sprayed into the air. Jackson ducked instinctively, then surged forward, hands flying over the controls. He aimed the limited energy available into a temporary force field in front of the hangar doors. The shield flared just in time, blocking another impact. Not enough, he muttered. He knew the marauders would keep coming. He had to think faster than they could. Humans survived by adapting, by finding solutions no algorithm could compute. This was no different. He remembered the battle simulations from his academy training, the patterns, the improvisation techniques, the tricks used against overwhelming odds. He combined them with what he was learning about the battlecruiser's systems. He activated auxiliary thrusters, not to fly, but to shift the ship's internal balance, creating small shockwaves through the hull. It was risky, but it disoriented the Marauder's sensors just long enough to buy him time. Another warning flashed on the main console: integrity compromised. Human judgment required. Jackson's pulse quickened. The AI was testing him again. One wrong decision and the systems could shut down, leaving him vulnerable. He forced himself to breathe, to focus. Humans thrived under pressure. That was their strength. Using the ship's limited sensors, he traced the Marauder's ships, predicting their movements. Then, with a sudden surge of intuition, he rerouted power to the ship's ancient but functional defense turrets. The targeting systems were crude, designed for aliens with faster reaction times, but humans had ingenuity. He aimed manually, calculating trajectories, velocities, and timing purely by instinct and observation. The first shot hit, knocking a Marauder vessel sideways. Sparks erupted, engines flaring. Jackson's eyes lit with grim satisfaction. He had done it, not with raw power but with thinking, courage, and precision. The battlecruiser seemed to respond, its systems recognizing him as more than a human operator. The AI pulsed through the ship like a heartbeat in sync with his own. He realized the truth: The aliens had left this ship for a human because no machine or alien intellect could combine intuition and courage the way humans could. Then a louder shock hit the hangar. The outer doors cracked. Dust and light streamed in from the storm outside. Jackson's mind raced. He needed to get the ship fully awake, or the marauders would breach the hangar before he could defend it completely. He returned to the main console, energy coursing beneath his hands, and prepared to push the systems further. His fingers flew across the controls, aligning energy nodes and circuits that had not been touched in centuries. The ship shivered, its hum growing into a roar. Panels glowed in golden patterns, lights tracing the hull like veins of power. He could feel the consciousness inside, the pods, the AI, the memories, all responding to him, trusting him. And then a single warning blinked. External threat detected. Human response required. Jackson's stomach tightened. The storm outside and the marauders inside were both closing in. He had awakened the ship partially, but the real trial was only beginning. He clenched his fists, breathing hard. Humans were never the strongest, the fastest, or the most numerous, but they were fearless when faced with impossible odds. And Jackson was about to prove it. He leaned forward, ready to push the ship beyond its limits. One thought burned in his mind. If he failed, the Battlecruiser, and the secrets it held, would be lost forever. And outside, the shadow of the Marauders' ships loomed closer. Jackson's fingers danced over the control panels, rerouting power faster than he thought human hands could move. The ship shivered beneath him, responding like a living thing, its hull vibrating in time with the hum that had become almost comforting. He didn't have much time. The Marauders' ships were too close now, small and agile, weaving across the moon's rocky surface toward the hangar. One wrong move and they'd breach the outer walls. He took a deep breath, forcing his racing heart to steady. Fear was normal, but hesitation would kill him. Humans survived because they acted where others froze. That had been true for centuries and it would be true now. He toggled the auxiliary shields, creating a semi-permeable barrier in front of the hangar doors. Sparks flew as energy arced across the control panels. The first shots hit the shield. Metal groaned. Dust exploded into the air. Jackson ducked instinctively, then dove back into the controls, calculating angles, power levels, and timing. Humans could improvise, and that improvisation was about to become their greatest weapon. He noticed a weak spot in the enemy formation, a narrow path between two rocks that their sensors relied on. If he could manipulate the battlecruiser's limited thrusters to create vibrations at just the right frequency, it might throw the enemy targeting off balance long enough for him to strike. "Come on," he muttered, adjusting the controls. The ship hummed and pulsed under his touch. Every fiber of his being was focused on the tiniest detail. The first Marauder vessel lurched violently as the ground trembled. Sparks flared from its hull. Jackson smiled grimly. Improvisation, instinct, courage, these were human strengths no machine could replicate. The second wave of attacks hit harder. The hangar shuddered and the lights flickered. Dust filled the air, making it difficult to see, but Jackson didn't need sight alone. He felt the rhythm of the battlecruiser through the floor, through the controls. Every vibration, every hum guided his hands. He fired the ancient turrets manually, calculating angles, speed, and distance faster than any computer could. One by one, enemy ships faltered, engines flaring as his aim found its mark. A panel flashed red. Energy was draining faster than he had expected. The shields wouldn't hold if the assault continued. Jackson clenched his teeth. Humans thrived under pressure, yes, but this was more than survival, it was about proving something to the galaxy itself. Humans were underestimated. They were clever, daring, courageous. And he was about to show exactly why. He ran to the navigation console, plotting a maneuver that no ship in the galaxy would have predicted. The battlecruiser shuddered as he rerouted power from non-essential systems to engines and turrets. Sparks flew as circuits overloaded slightly, but the ship adapted. It seemed to anticipate his moves, trusting his judgment in ways no artificial intelligence had ever done before. The Marauders, confused by the sudden shift, broke formation. That was the moment Jackson needed. He triggered the ship's ancient targeting system, manually guiding a concentrated burst of energy. The first Marauder ship exploded, sending shards of metal spinning across the moon's surface. Jackson didn't pause. Another burst, another ship disabled. His confidence grew. The battlecruiser was responding, alive, and he was no longer just a mechanic, he was the mind that guided it, the courage that powered it, the human no one expected to master such power. The remaining ships regrouped, firing wildly. One shot hit the hangar wall, sending a spray of sparks across the floor. Jackson dove to avoid it, barely catching himself. Adrenaline surged. Fear remained, but it was now a tool, sharpening his instincts. Humans had always turned fear into action. This was the ultimate test. He glanced at the stasis pods, the alien consciousnesses floating silently inside. He realized then that the battlecruiser wasn't just a weapon. It was a bridge. These beings had left their most powerful legacy for a human to activate. If he failed, it would be lost forever. That thought steeled him. Humans didn't just survive. They carried the weight of possibility, of hope, of change. Jackson adjusted the thrusters again, creating another tremor that threw the enemy sensors off. He guided the turrets manually, timing every shot to perfection. One by one, the Marauders' ships faltered, engines smoking, weapons offline. The last ship attempted a desperate run for the hangar doors, but Jackson anticipated it, triggering a precise blast that forced it into a rock formation. The enemy lay defeated, beaten by a single human who refused to give up. For a moment, silence fell over the hangar. Dust settled. Sparks from damaged consoles cooled. Jackson slumped against the controls, breathing heavily. He was exhausted but exhilarated. He had faced impossible odds and won, not through brute force but through intelligence, improvisation, and courage. The battlecruiser's hum shifted once more. Felt grateful. Alive. A connection had formed between human and machine, stronger than any programming or alien design. Jackson knew this was only the beginning. The Marauders were gone, but the galaxy would not remain silent. New challenges, new dangers, new discoveries awaited. He straightened, wiping sweat from his brow. Humans had been underestimated for too long. Here, in this hangar, a single human had proven that courage and intelligence could awaken legends. And deep inside, the ship pulsed, waiting for the next command, the next test. Outside, the storm over the moon raged on, but Jackson felt calm. One human had changed everything. The battlecruiser was theirs to command, but only if they were brave enough to continue. The hangar was quiet now. Dust drifted in the faint light, settling over the battlecruiser's massive hull. Jackson Miles leaned against the console, muscles tense, heart still pounding. The Marauders were gone, their ships disabled or scattered across the moon's surface. But he knew the victory was only temporary. The ship, this power, was bigger than any one fight. He had awakened it, but could he truly control it? The stasis pods glimmered softly, the alien consciousnesses within shifting slightly as if aware. Jackson approached, awe and unease mingling in his chest. These beings had built a war machine to protect their civilization, yet it was entrusted to him, a human. He realized the responsibility he carried. A single misstep could destroy lives, worlds even. Yet, for the first time, he understood why humans were chosen. Courage, ingenuity, morality, traits that machines and even aliens could underestimate, were the keys to unlocking this ship's full potential. He crouched before the main console and ran his fingers over the alien symbols. The ship had responded to his improvisation and intuition during the battle, but now it demanded more. He had to fully integrate with it, to think like it thought, to see through the centuries of programming and memory. Was not easy. Hours of trial and error tested him, circuits sparking, screens flickering, energy nodes threatening to overload. Every second carried the weight of lives he had yet to meet, lives that depended on his success. Then a new display appeared. Words and symbols formed a coherent message in the galactic language. Human courage verified. Full activation granted. Choose the path. Jackson's pulse quickened. He had never faced a choice like this. The ship could serve as a weapon of unimaginable power, capable of wiping out fleets, or as a guardian, a protector of countless civilizations. He remembered the note, "Only a human can awaken her." Now he understood its true meaning. Humans were not just operators. They were moral agents, capable of choosing between destruction and salvation. He placed his hands on the central console, feeling the ship's pulse through his fingertips. Thoughts raced. He imagined the galaxy, fragile and divided, teetering on the edge of chaos. He imagined human courage shining as a beacon, a force that could change fate itself. Decision made, he whispered, "We protect. We don't destroy." Immediately the ship seemed to respond as if approving. Lights glowed brighter, engines hummed deeper, and the stasis pods released a soft energy wave. The alien consciousnesses stirred, observing him. One of them, a strategist preserved for centuries, finally spoke, not in words but in a tone that resonated in Jackson's mind. "You have chosen wisely, human. Together we will defend what remains." The hangar doors groaned as the storm outside intensified. Jackson could feel the ship's power building, waiting for its first journey beyond the moon. He checked systems. Weapons offline, engines online, navigation synchronized. The battlecruiser was ready, but he knew the true test would come in the galaxy. Then a flicker on the sensors caught his attention. Another ship, small and sleek, approaching fast. It was not one of the marauders, they were too far away. This was something new. Something bigger. Perhaps another test, or another enemy seeking to exploit the battlecruiser. Jackson didn't hesitate. He climbed into the command chair, feeling the ship respond to his touch. Controls aligned instinctively with his hands. He activated auxiliary systems, rerouted energy, and ran simulations in real time. Every choice mattered. Every calculation could mean survival or catastrophe. Yet he felt calm. Humans thrived under pressure, and he had survived the impossible before. The approaching ship fired a warning shot. Jackson smiled grimly. Let's see what courage can do. He guided the battlecruiser's shields with precision, deflecting the blast. Then he used the thrusters to shift position, creating a calculated shockwave that threw off the enemy's aim. The small ship faltered, engines flaring. The alien consciousnesses inside the pods observed, silent but approving. Jackson realized then that the battlecruiser was not just a weapon or a machine, it was a partner. Humans were the spark that brought it to life, the mind that guided it, the heart that gave it purpose. Every pulse, every vibration, every hum of energy was proof that humans could stand where no one expected, shape the future, and shoulder responsibility that others shunned. The enemy ship retreated, disabled but intact. Jackson exhaled, relief flooding him. This was victory, but it was also a promise. The galaxy would see the strength of humans not in raw power, but in courage, intelligence, and morality. The battlecruiser purred beneath him, alive and obedient, a testament to what humans could achieve when given the chance. He stood and walked to the viewport. The storm outside had not abated, but it didn't matter. The stars stretched across the black sky, infinite and full of possibility. Jackson realized that he had changed something fundamental. One human, one choice, one act of courage had awakened not just the ship, but hope itself. The note fluttered again in the command chamber, carried by the shifting air. The universe favors those who dare. Jackson smiled. He had dared. And humanity, long underestimated, had finally earned its place among the stars. For the first time he felt the weight of history on his shoulders, and the thrill of shaping it. The battlecruiser was ready to move, the galaxy waiting, and one human had proven that courage could awaken legends. And as the engines roared to life, Jackson knew this was only the beginning. Humans would not be forgotten. They would stand, they would fight, and they would shine. Against impossible odds, against disbelief, against the darkness of space itself. The hangar doors opened, revealing the stars. Jackson gripped the controls. The battlecruiser surged forward, alive, guided by human courage. The galaxy would never underestimate them again.